Hello, welcome to episode 9 of the book set Completionist. My name is still Tom, and today I'm showing you a book set that I think you have never heard of before. Even some of you might be into BookTube and are watching a lot of channels and creators talk about books, but I don't think this set has ever appeared on anybody's radar. It certainly has not on mine. Not that I watch that much, but I watch quite a few channels and creators, but never seen this. So what is it? This is a trilogy written in the 1980s, specifically 1980, 1988, and 1989, respectively, for each part of the set. And it was written by an author that, again, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of this man, yes. His name is William Horwood. Does that ring a bell? I don't know. What is it about? It's about animals. In particular, it's about moles. Yes, moles. What? Has anyone ever heard of a book about moles? Let alone 3 books, let alone 3 massive books? Well, if you have, then good for you. Then you are an expert in all that is fantasy, because I think moles or animal fiction is fantasy. We've got talking animals who might just represent people, but it's still fantasy, and that is it. This is called the Duncton Chronicles. The trilogy consists of these 3 pretty hefty tomes. We've got part 1, Duncton Wood. Part 2 is called Duncton Quest, and part 3 is Duncton Found. Now, how about that, huh? Have you heard of this set before? I had not before, and when I found it while browsing on the internet on my favorite Facebook book selling groups, I was amazed. I got this one first, and then the other 2 to complete the trilogy. I had not heard of this. I had no idea what it was, but it was available, so I just bought it. It wasn't expensive, and I like them. I mean, I like how they look. I haven't read them, obviously, but I like their aesthetics. And so let me show you in detail what they look like. Let's take a closer look at these books. The first part is Duncton Wood, a clash of good and evil in the savage kingdom of moles. Now, moles and savagery don't really I don't associate savagery with moles. Let me say it like that. But who knows? Second part is Duncton Quest, Duncton Chronicles 2, and the third part is Duncton Found, part 3. Now there's actually another trilogy after this, which I don't have yet. And what I like about these books is their cover art. Pretty neat. And the books themselves just feel very nice. With most of these paperbacks, the spines are very stiff, and it's always a bit hard to really open a book without creasing the spine. But this one, it just feels so light and flexible. And that's why I can do this without feeling worried that I might damage the book somehow. Funnily enough, all 3 of these books refer to Lord of the Rings. That's a sort of reference to it. An absolute spellbinder by Lord of the Rings out of Watership Down, but that's another famous animal fantasy work. And part 2 has something similar, an inspiring novel in epic in the tradition of the Lord of the Rings. What? This one as well. A massive read, more readable and more rewarding than Lord of the Rings. Well, that again is pretty much a bold statement that I always treat with some skepticism. But yeah, look at this one, part 2. Gorgeous cover all around. Just amazing how that looks. And part 3 as well. Nice with the golden trim on the bottom. Yeah. Are there maps? Yes, there are maps, of course. It's fantasy. There must be maps. Not very detailed, or it's just a little bit childish, but it's there. Although it's not here in part 2. Is it here in part 1? No. Why is there only a map in the 3rd book? As if it doesn't matter. Okay, well, there you go. Duncton Wood, Duncton Quest, and Duncton Found by William Horwood. It's going to take me a while to read all that. Look at the size of them. They're each about 700 or 800 pages. So, a lot of content there. Okay. Okay, then today's book review is of a book called A Canticle for Leibowitz. There it is. I'll also have this cover, this issue with a slightly different cover. I hope the glare is okay. This is considered a classic in science fiction. It says so on the cover. The classic bestseller and a landmark of 20th century literature. Well, if that doesn't create expectations, I don't know what does. I'm always a bit skeptical when I see these sort of dubious claims. Yeah, like what are the publishers trying to do here? Are they trying to sort of elevate the status of a novel like this? Isn't it up to us readers to determine whether something is a classic? And maybe lots of people have read it and agreed that it is a classic. I'm not here to argue the status of a certain work of fiction, but did I like it as much as what some of these, as what this book has been compared to? It says here, a timeless and still timely masterpiece, A Canticle for Leibowitz is a classic that ranks with Brave New World and 1984. Now, those are probably much more famous works than this one, I think. Now, what is it about? Let me tell you some details. It was written by Walter Miller Jr. in 1959. This author hasn't written a lot. Actually, this is his most famous work, and I think there was a sequel to this one. But other than that, he's not very well known for producing any other works, any novels. There are short stories by him, as I have found out. But this is really it. The cover, as you see right here, the cover depicts some sort of religious character. There's a hat. I don't know what that's called. Probably, no, not probably. It is a Catholic priest or bishop or something along those lines. And that plays a big part in the story. So this is called a post-apocalyptic tale of a world where the nuclear holocaust has taken place. Nuclear war has completely eviscerated our planet, except for a few survivors who try to survive. Yeah, they do, right? Survivors survive, fine. There's so much to say. I don't want to spoil too much, but this book, let me say that it's not so much as what happens as it is how it happens. The book starts with this establishment that the world has been decimated by this nuclear war, but that there are still people who have survived, and that these people sort of regressed or devolved into a lower level of civilization, or rather no civilization anymore at all. When it was written in the 50s, it was just after World War II. after the events that ended that war, the nuclear bomb that was dropped on Japan. And so anything after the immediate end of that war, any literature, especially science fiction, I think had that fresh on the eyes. I mean, fresh on the memory of authors in that day. And so to write about such a possibility that the world would indeed devolve into nuclear war with all the consequences that would mean, I think that was a very potent topic to write about. And so that's, I think, why I loved the idea of it. So I didn't know much about it when I was when I was starting reading the book. I'm not a religious person, so the imagery did not really appeal to me as far as this character concerns. But I'll put up a picture on the screen. There are some cool imagery of science fiction, spaceships, sort of futuristic elements there that look very nice. And so I started reading it without any background knowledge of it. And I have to say that was why I got a bit disappointed in this. It's actually 3 novels, 3 short stories that take place in very different times. Each are separated by about 600 years. The first one is around 500 years after after the nuclear war took place in the year 2600 something. We have a story of a priest. No, it's actually not a priest yet. He's a member of an order, and this order has taken it upon themselves to preserve knowledge, because after this nuclear war, the survivors sort of rejected anything that had to do with science and with knowledge, because they thought that the whole reason why there was a nuclear war in the first place was because science had allowed these weapons to be developed. And so anything that even slightly linked to knowledge or science would be deemed just completely unacceptable. And scientists were killed, books were burned, that sort of scenario you can imagine. And this order is trying to preserve books, preserve any sort of documents that could be saved for prosperity. And this one person, he finds some of the artifacts that had survived from that time. And again, yeah, should I say everything? Should I talk about the entire story? Let me just say that in this first part of the book, it's sort of like a dark age, right? There's no knowledge, there's no science, but there's this small group that tries to preserve it. Okay. Then in the second part, we skip 600 years, where science has slightly re-emerged. Some people have taken it upon themselves to study ancient documents and try to go back to some sort of higher level of civilization. And in the last part of the book, we see that it has gone back to such a civilization, that these weapons have again been developed. And does history repeat itself? Well, you'll have to read it to find out. Okay, so why didn't I really like this book that much? It is arguably not even real science fiction, because although there is that backdrop of Holocaust, nuclear Holocaust, and post-apocalyptic world, it doesn't show that. It is rather much more implied through just very sparse descriptions of the world that it is. The story focuses much more on the characters, and even these characters are not that interesting, because, like I said, there are 3 parts, 3 distinct sections in the book, and each of these sections has unique characters, because they live hundreds of years apart. So there is no central cast of characters that you'll see throughout the book. These characters all live in the same place in America, by the way. Yeah, it takes place in America, but it doesn't look like anything that we are familiar with today. It has fragmented into smaller pieces and different tribal areas. So those are interesting ideas. Like, how does a world reform after a nuclear holocaust? What sort of political consequences would there be in the development of these power structures? That's nice, but we just have to guess because the description in the book is quite limited on that. And the majority is about these members of this order, this religious Catholic order that tries to preserve knowledge. But they too know that this knowledge was used with very bad consequences. They know too that this knowledge was the reason why the world, uh, just devolved into chaos. And so we see this conflict of knowledge versus human nature, where human nature is maybe not really compatible with what science can do. Science creates the tools for humans to destroy each other, but also themselves, because we're all living on the same world. And these monks, I just call them monks, they know this, but they still want to preserve the knowledge, but they are so afraid that it falls into the wrong hands. And tyrants will reappear, try to reestablish the science and create another situation where nuclear war could happen. That's, I think, the central theme of the book, but it's done from a point of view, a religious point of view, through the eyes of these members of this order. And yeah, someone who's not religious at all, like me, it does feel a bit remote. I cannot really relate to everything that's going on in the book, especially there's a situation where one of these leaders of the is it an abbot? Yeah, the abbot of this place, we call an abbey. I'm sorry, I'm not really familiar with any of the terminology that much. But there's this place where these monks live together. An abbot is their leader, and he is quite dogmatic about it. There's a situation at the end of the book where a victim of nuclear fallout is very sick and cannot recover, is suffering immensely, and the doctor suggests that euthanasia would be the best choice, right, to assist her in her suicide. Also, she has a baby, which is similarly incurably sick, and there's no good outcome for them. So best probably is for them to just pass away. But this abbot, it goes against his beliefs, right? He's a Christian, he's a Catholic. Any suggestion of euthanasia is absolutely unacceptable for him. But he doesn't care that the person who's sick is not a Christian. He says, okay, if I allow this to happen, I know about it, that makes me a sinner, no matter if the person who's actually sick continues to suffer, doesn't believe in God at all, and doesn't matter, right? He's so convinced of his own beliefs that he doesn't care that this person will suffer immensely, just as long as he can have a clear conscience about his own faith, right? He will not support or help. He will indeed try to prevent that victim from seeking relief through euthanasia. To me, I don't agree with that kind of position at all. I think people should do what they want with their own lives. And if people disagree, okay, they can choose not to support, but to actively try to prevent something like that from happening, I think goes way too far. Right. So again, from that point of view, it doesn't really appeal to me. And that's why I didn't enjoy it as much as I could have. Also, the amount of implications rather than specific descriptions or real in the moment story of the nuclear apocalypse, it's just not there, right? It's all focused on these characters who are not that interesting to me, and the interesting bit to me is underdeveloped. Okay, the cover of the other book suggests that there's a very rich world of technology and flying spaceships and also sort of futuristic architecture and all of that, but it's not there. The cover design does not reflect at all what's going on in the story. And this one is also a bit interesting. This is like a shopping list. This is the document that the first character found in some ruins that they think links to the founder of their order, but this is just a bunch of, yeah, it's a shopping list, and they don't understand it. They think it's some sort of important, significant text, and so they venerate it. They decorate it, and they treat it as something holy almost. So, but again, it doesn't appear in the story all that much. Why did they put that on the cover when it really plays a very insignificant part in the story? Yeah. Okay. So overall, I don't think it rises to the level of things like 1984. I don't think it's that impressive. Yeah, it does deal with some interesting concepts like the conflict of science versus human nature, the history that repeats itself, like a cyclical nature of history that we always do the same things that we've already done. We destroy ourselves or destroy each other, and that will keep on going until we have destroyed our entire planet and we have to move off world to another colony or another star system where that will probably just happen again, because that seems to be who we are as humans. We are self-destructive. Yeah. So that is an interesting idea, but it's not executed in a way that appeals to me, and so I don't really think it should be named with the other works that we all know. So, do I recommend it? No, I can't. I think maybe if you're a Christian, you get more out of it than I did. If you're not a Christian, I think there are better works that deal with this topic. I still have to find that kind of work, and I'm happy to keep reading to find something that I really love. But this wasn't it. But still, interesting read, and I didn't regret reading it. But just nah, not for me. Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much for watching my video again, and see you next time. Episode 10. I promise will be something quite special. So hope to see you there.